that encouragement? Hey, does anybody know what a farrier is? What a person who is a farrier does?
Horseshoe.
Okay. Charles, horseshoe man? Okay, very good. Well, I drove by that. I've been working in Siloam, and I keep driving by his house, and the guy says farrier service. He got a sign out front. So finally I Googled it, Todd. I'm like, all right, I get it. I just call him a horseshoer, but apparently it's more than that. My brother has a gun shop in Nashville in Arkansas, and one day I was in there, and he introduced me to a guy, and he says, ask him what he does. And I said, all right, what do you do? And he said, I'm a horse dentist. And I said, how did you get to be a horse dentist? There are no horse dentistry schools. And he said, I go all over to these fancy horse farms in Kentucky and the South and work on these expensive horses because they get tooth trouble, they get mouth issues, and it can be devastating to them. But he said when I was in high school, this local man did horse dentistry and he needed help for the summer, and so I helped him and said I liked it. So when I got out, I went and apprenticed with him for a few years. So horse dentistry, who would have thought? That sounds like, what's that guy that does him Dirty Jobs show? That guy does that Dirty Jobs show. Yeah, Micro. Yeah, he's a good guy. Micro, good dude. Got a few things here. Donna Rain tested positive for COVID. So Mike is home with her. And man, she had a rough time last time with COVID. Joe Kilpatrick's cousin, Dwayne Kilpatrick from Siloam, just passed away. No arrangements have been made as of yet. Marion and Gina, I don't know what they did that's so special to get announced, but they got a new grandson. Holden Porter Pruitt, 9 pounds, 9 ounces. So Sam Pittman has already sent him a letter of intent. Youth-led services are going to be Sunday night. Boys need to be here at 4. Girls Devo Sunday at 4 in the fellowship hall, and Sue Buchanan is going to be the speaker. All right, so are you going to get practiced on all week? Come join to help fold gospel tracts tomorrow from 9 to 11. I'm assuming over here. We're going to have a cutting day for Thursday school tomorrow. They'll meet in the fellowship hall from 9 to 11. Would love any and all volunteers that can come. What's our enrollment in that thing? Anybody know? Yeah. Bunch? 130. Patrick and Dara Hanson are loading their truck to move next Wednesday, August 28th. They welcome any help that day beginning at 8 a.m. Family retreat is scheduled for Friday, September 27th through Sunday, September 29th. The theme will be service, and there's sign-up sheets back here. And you can look on your bulletin at our prayer list. If there's anybody I need to mention here, y'all holler at me. But we got a big list here. If you, Taj mentioned it, but man, my favorite thing we do all year is family retreat. It's really, really neat. If you can just come up Saturday, just for a day, it'll be worth it. But, 2 years ago, Tina and I really got to know Philip and Tabitha. And before that, I know he's a good son. But before that, they were just people that sit right over here. But we really got to know them those 3 days. And then last year, everybody knows Brent, but we really got to know Whitney really well. And so you get to make relationships with your brothers and sisters that, you just don't get here coming. We do good, but it's just a different environment, and I'd really encourage you to consider going. The beds are terrible and the food's not very good, but I'm just kidding. It's good times. We have a good time. No one starves, that's for sure. And Todd Johnson usually smokes some sort of meat. Is that on, Todd?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I figured so. We're going to be doing our topic on our spiritual discipline tour tonight is guidance. And I'm going to do my best to cover this topic. I was talking to Tayton about this coming over here on a drive over, and I've been speaking since I was 12 or 13 years old, and anytime I've done it, I've known exactly the points I wanted to make. I've known exactly the facts and the scriptures. And I was telling her, this one's a different subject. Guidance is a different deal. If you get outside, and I told her, I said, you get outside the Church of Christ, and you're going to have people talking to you about dreams they had that God come to them, or maybe an angel come and spoke to them, or they saw some sign. I remember when I was 8 years old, we had a fireworks stand, and Todd, my dad, had to leave for some reason, left me in charge. Hey, that's 1978, brother. It's good times. You got an 8-year-old running an explosive fireworks stand, but he had to run across the street and back. And this man pulled up in this van, and he had all these tracts printed up. And he was giving some story about how he had a vision. And so you get outside of Scripture, and people, everybody, this is on everybody's mind. How do we know? How do we get in touch with God and what God wants for our lives? And, I've got a decision to make. Do I turn right or do I turn left? How do I know which way to go? And so these are some difficult things to answer and talk about. But I've got my own beliefs on the matter. And hey, if you've got this figured out, if Wayne Carter's got the PhD on this and hadn't told us, I'll be glad to hear it tonight from you guys. So please jump in with any comments that you have concerning this. But I'll just start with my favorite account in the Bible, and that's sorry Australian preacher we got. Used it Sunday. But it's not Daniel in the lion's den. He's from New Zealand, by the way. But we kid him. It's not Daniel in the lion's den. It's not David and Goliath. But ever since I was a kid, my favorite story has been Joseph. The story of Joseph. And in Genesis 37, we got 9 chapters here. It covers 8 of those. We won't read all those, but you know what happens? Jacob has a favorite, and it's Joseph. And I've got a favorite child in my family, and it's Tayton. Since her 2 brothers aren't here, I'll just tell all y'all. I tell her all the time, don't tell your brothers. But he had a favorite son, and he showed him favoritism. It was no secret. His brothers are out in the field, and his dad says, I want you to go give me a report on your brothers. Well, why isn't he out in the field with his brothers? He's old enough to do that. Number one, so his dad let him stay out of that business. And number two, now he's a spy. Or back in your day, you probably called him a rat, Rick. Well, you don't need a rat coming around here. And so they couldn't stand him. And through a series of circumstances, he ends up enslaved and in prison after Potiphar's wife falsely accuses him. He does everything right. You ever do everything right and things still go bad? Or you still get blamed? It's called marriage. Oh, come on, laugh. Let's go. It's Wednesday.
This is recorded.
Yeah, I know. Tina, yeah, I guess Tina could. But my poor daughter. You are my favorite daughter. But these circumstances happen to him, and he tells these two guys, a butler and a baker, and they get out of prison, and they don't remember him, and so he stays in jail some more, stays in jail longer. But he eventually gets out, and God eventually raises him up in Pharaoh's household. He's number two of everything underneath Pharaoh. He has immense power. I wonder how many times Joseph asked God, what are we talking here, a couple decades? I wonder how many times he asked God, what do you want me to do? How do I get out of this prison? How do I get out of this enslavement? How do I get out of this predicament? You tell me what to do. Do I need to stand on one foot, hop up and down, and bark like a dog? What do you want me to do to get out of this situation? No burning bush shows up for Joseph. No angel comes and tells him the plan. But we know that he was faithful all the way through. He was faithful to God all the way through. In Daniel 3, we have the fiery furnace. And Nebuchadnezzar is a king, and these kings can get about anything they want. They can have about anything they want. In fact, when the children of Israel wanted a king, God told them, said, listen, he's gonna make your sons go to war. He's going to work you harder than you ever been worked before, and he's going to tax you for it. He's going to rule over you if I give you this king. And he said, no, we want one. We want to be like everybody else anyway. But King Nebuchadnezzar's in charge now. And he's got some guys that don't like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego because they were foreigners. But he saw the talent that they had. God had gave them talent, and so he put them in prime places in his kingdom, and they flourished. And so, John, I know how it is down there at work. Since you're the best mechanic down there, I know there's jealousy going around. They probably walk by and throw some water in the gas tank of the car you're working on or something like that to sabotage you. But these guys were jealous of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. On Sunday morning in my college class, we were talking about Jezebel. She's married. Was it Ahab she was married to? And he was just a wimp. For a king, he wanted Nabal's vineyard. Nabal turned him down. He went and got in bed. How are you going to handle a famine, brother? How are you going to handle real difficulty if that slaps you down? And so Naboth goes and crawls in bed and pouts, and Jezebel goes, what's your problem? You're the king. And he tells her, and she goes, I got this. I'll take care of this. So Jezebel did what has been done and what is done to this day to people when they try to get their way. She says, here's what we're going to do. And she wrote letters to all these influential people, city council people, and mayors, all these influential people. And she said, we're going to have a big banquet. And we're going to bring Naboth in, and I'm going to get a couple of people to say that he's saying bad things about the king, and you guys just back him up. And she signed Ahab's name and used his ring to seal those envelopes. So they thought it come from the king. So sure enough, Naboth gets there. These guys accuse him, and these upstanding officials back him up. And so they go and stone Naboth, and she walked in and said, here you go, Ahab. Now you got your vineyard. Does that sound like someone about 2,000 years ago? Didn't that kind of happen to Jesus? Same thing. And here we are, because human nature doesn't change, right? But here we are with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these guys are jealous of them. And so they know the weakness of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is their dependability and their faith in God. And so they convince Nebuchadnezzar to make this big statue. And when they play the music, everybody's going to bow down and worship this statue. But guess who they know will not do this? They know Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are not going to do this. So the whole thing's a ruse to set up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Do you think these guys for a second gave a rip about this statue? No. They're trying to get Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And so this all happens, and so he gets all mad because these foreigners that he has treated so well and exalted in his kingdom have not obeyed his simple little rule, and so he throws them in a fiery furnace. And when he accuses them and approaches them in Daniel chapter 3, and he tells them what they did wrong and what's going to happen to them, they said, we don't care. Daniel 3 here. Let's get over here. Oh yeah, verse 16. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we don't have to answer you in this matter. See, he is challenging their relationship with God. And they're like, your mouth is writing checks you cannot cash, King Nebuchadnezzar. You have authority, but you're overstepping your authority when you are trying to tell us how we're going to worship. So they say, we don't have any need to even answer you in this matter, but we're going to. And so verse 17, it says, if this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand. So we know he can deliver us. But this is the best one. Verse 18. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. They go, we believe God can rescue us, but even if he chooses not to, we are not going to worship this God that you set up. And then he gets in a rage and he turns this fire up 7 times hotter, which a lot of people, think 1,200 or 1,500 degrees. That's hot. And so they throw him in there. And the guards, of course, that throw him in there, the heat was so great it killed him. And then he looks in the furnace and he sees 4 figures. And one of them, he says, looks like the Son of God. But not one hair was burned on them. Yet their bonds were off. They didn't have any bonds. And so he calls to them and they come out. And they didn't even smell like smoke. But one thing you got to know is when you get put in the fire of life, it'll cut your bonds of fear. Because when it finally hits you, when life finally lands on you, the thing that you've been fearing finally shows up, there's no need to fear anymore. So that fire that we go through sometimes will cut us free from our fear. But the point here is, again, just like Joseph continued to follow God through all these situations in his own life, these 3 men did the same here. And God worked out things for them. Having faith is not knowing how it'll work out, but it's knowing that it'll work out. Matthew 19:16 through 22. And behold, a man came to him, saying, Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life? And he said to him, Why do you ask about me? What is good? There's only one who is good. If you would enter life, keep the commandments. He said to him, Which ones? And Jesus said, You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. The young man said to him, All these I have kept. What do I still lack? Jesus said to him, If you would be perfect, go, sell what you possess and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. And come follow me. When the young man heard this, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. You know, when I was talking to Tate, and I asked her, I said, when Jesus healed somebody, what's the most common advice he gave them after he healed them?
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, early on it was don't tell anybody. What else? That's right, go and don't sin anymore. Did he heal them because they sinned? No. No, they're sinners just like you and I. Even though Mike calls us saints because we're sinners with grace, right? But he'd say, go and don't sin anymore. And the point here is, with this whole guidance situation is, follow God, have a relationship with God, Do you want to take the right path or the left path? You pray about that. Do I need to marry? Do I need to marry this person or that person? Do I need to take this job or that job? Do we need to move? You know, Rick told Tammy, let's move to Farmington, Arkansas. She said, what in the world? Farmington. She probably said Farmington, New Mexico. That's everybody I say from Farmington, New Mexico. No, there is a Farmington, Arkansas. Ever happened to anybody in here? But we have all these decisions. And to be honest, this is kind of a modern problem. If you were born 300 years ago, guess what your occupation probably would be?
Shepherd.
You'd be agriculture. At some level, 98% of us in here would be in agriculture. But today we've got so many choices and so many ways to go. There are more important things to God than death. Death scares humans to death. We think about, I remember being a kid and getting freaked out about it, Todd. Go watch some more Scooby-Doo. Quit worrying about that. But death bothers us. But there are worse things in this life than death. Just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego showed. There are worse things than getting thrown in that fire. Just like Joseph showed. There are worse things than being wrongly imprisoned in life. And so the point of guidance is to be a Christian, to know your God. And how do you know? How do you know who God is? I want you to go home tonight, only if you want to. You watch the 10 o'clock news, and you're going to see negative problems for 30 minutes. Even the poor weatherman. It's going to be sunny tomorrow, but man, it's going to be hot, Rick. It's August, it's Arkansas. It's going to be hot. But everything that comes up in that news cycle the answer is right here. Because human nature does not change. And this book addresses human nature. And we know God by knowing this book. I told my college class a good way to, I don't know if they're reading every day, but I just told them start in the book of Mark. Read one chapter and get you a journal and write a little note about it. What stuck out to you in that chapter? I was reading the other day in Matthew chapter 4, and where he's tempting Jesus. And Charles, he takes Jesus up and he shows him all these cities. And he says, if you'll bow down, I'll give them to you. How can Satan give something he doesn't have? He's got those cities. Oh, John, I've read that for years and didn't catch that. Whoa, that was crazy. But that's how you read the Bible. Pour it over, chew on it. You know, we had a lesson on meditation here. I don't know who gave it, but here back in June, I think, on meditating on the Word. Was it you, Todd? Okay, very good. Yeah, I remember it. And, you know, you think about those kind of things. You read about them, think about them every day. But does anyone else have anything on guidance?
Well, the guidance becomes easier when you know God.
Yes.
You don't wait until that point where you need guidance. You already have the guidance getting to the point. And so if you live your life the way the Scriptures tell you to live your life, the decision that requires the world to have guidance on making a decision, you've already got that guidance. That guidance is already in you. That decision's already been made for you, and it's easy just to go that way. When it comes right or left, and you know left is wrong and right is right, there is no, you just go right. That's just the way it is, because you're already to the point where you know where the guidance comes from. You have the mentality of what would Jesus do? Well, you don't know what Jesus would do unless you know Jesus. You don't know what God would have you to do until you know God. And so the decision process and the guidance, I think, is just a continual thing, and it just makes it easier to make those decisions. You know, you already have. You know, a lot of times making a decision requires you have some kind of information to decide whether you do that. Well, you already have all the information you need to make the decision. It just makes that decision a lot easier.
And sometimes sometimes you just don't know, but you've got to. God cannot help a parked car. You've got to be moving forward, and take some faith.
come across all kinds of people that hear voices, hear God, see angels, this, that, signs, wonders. And an awful lot of those people, their mind is made up. They know they've seen it, and nothing you say is going to reach them. I know I've dealt with a number of them, but it's really sad. How do you reach somebody like that? And just like you said, God can't reach. God is limited in his power in this sense. If you don't want to be reached, even God ain't going to reach you.
Right. Shake your sandals off. Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
It's like in Romans. Remember what he said? He gave them up to their...
Yeah. That's a scary place to be.
It is.
All right. Foster, do you have your hand up? No, I just wanted to embarrass you. Sorry. Well, guys, I appreciate it, and again, God, it is so humbling to realize how bad He wants a relationship with us, because we know our faults and we look at ourselves as just plain old flawed humans, and you know, why would Jesus want to know us? And that's what He wants. That's what He wants. So seek Him this week.
Yeah, and I think complacency becomes the biggest problem for a lot of us.
Yeah.
We get complacent. We forget to move forward with God. We just kind of sit there.
Yeah. Yep. Very good. Anybody else? All right. Well, y'all have a good rest of the week.